This is project 2 of Hacking with Swift, in which you'll make your first game. And don't think, oh, I hate games, I want to make apps, I don't care about games. Please don't think that. This game will teach you a huge amount about working with UIKit, building upon all those things you learned in project 1, and teaching you more. And if, by the way, you did miss out project 1, I'm sorry, go back and start project 1, otherwise this thing will be awfully hard for you. Go ahead and launch Xcode. Then choose Create New Xcode Project. This time, please choose Single View Application. Then press Next. Name it Project 2. Leave these the same. Language Swift, device iPhone, no coordinator, never, sorry. Then press Next. Then save it somewhere useful like your desktop. Here is our basic application. Go ahead and press play, see how it looks. Doesn't do anything too exciting. In fact, it is an anticlimax. It is a large white screen. That's okay. What we're going to do is we're going to start by designing our layout to see roughly how our thing should look before we try and write any code. This, I find, is a great way to get your head thinking like users. You're thinking, are these positioned correctly? Is my program flow correct? Yada, yada, yada. Before you write any code. So it really helps you test your concept. So we're going to go to main.storyboard and you'll see a single view control this time. It's a much simpler layout. That's why it's called the single view application. And this time you'll see there is no navigation controller. Not at all. There was one before made for us in project 1. There is nothing here. And we need that because our game we're going to make is going to show various flags of the world in this area here, and at the top in that navigation bar it's going to show one of the country's names listed of those flags, and the user has to try and guess which is the right flag. It's a game, you see, but we have no navigation bar because we have no navigation controller. Fortunately, that is easily fixed. You just go up to here, editor, and choose embed in navigation controller. And that happens. Now it's quite messy. We have to drag things around a bit to try and see them slightly better. There we go. Navigation control on the left, thing on the right, and there's our bar into which we can put things, which is fantastic. So last time we used UI image view. This time, all new stuff. I want you to use a button. So type in the search in the object library button, and you see this thing. It has some text saying button. If you remember back in the old days of iOS 6, it was a more obvious tappable area, but nowadays it's all about text, so it's just the word button. Then up here is the attributes inspector. Go one to the right to go to the size inspector. Then change the width to be 200 and the height to be 100. Like that. There's a flag there. Now draw another button and another button. And make them all 200 by 100. So I'm going to just select those two directly and say, well, you are 200 and you are 100. That'll do them both at the same time. Now, what we're going to try and do is use auto layout to position these buttons correctly. We're going to try and do the rules, the constraints, a bit differently from the way we made them in project 1. Not because one's better than the other, of course, they're all good, but just so you can see the various possible ways of creating auto layout rules. So to start with, we're going to say to this button here, we're going to control drag, i.e. hold down control, click on the button and drag, from there, up out of the button, into the parent view, like that, so it goes blue. Then let go of the mouse button, and you get these options popping up, and one of them is top space, top layout guide. There's also center horizontally and other stuff. For now, please choose top space, top layout guide. Boom. Now, you'll see orange lines appearing. Orange lines means it is not doing the right thing. Something is wrong here. And over here is an orange dotted line. That's where auto layout thinks the button should be and how big it should be. But it's wrong. We haven't finished doing anything yet. Control drag again from the button up to the view, and this time choose center horizontally in container. Make it centered. So now we've got two blue lines, one go down the middle, that means center there, and one small blue line here, that means space out from here to the top layout guide, which in this case is our navigation bar. So the dotted line button has moved slightly because it's now centered. It still thinks it should be a lot smaller because it's only the word button, let's face it. But it's enough to get it at least centered. We're now going to explain to auto layout that our size is correct. And we're going to do that by using the project files for this project, which you may already have retrieved from hackingwithswift.com. If not, please go to hackingwithswift.com and download the project files now. And you will see something like this, Project 2 files. You will see a content folder with lots of flag pictures in Estonia, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Monaco, Nigeria, Poland, Russia, Spain, UK, and US. Now, in the last project, we just dragged that whole content folder into Xcode to start using them. And that's fine, you can do that. But there's actually a more optimized way of doing this behind the scenes, a bit smarter, a bit easier to manage. And they're called asset catalogs. There's one made for us automatically. You can choose images.exe assets. Click on that. And then from Finder, select all the images, Command A, and drag them all into this gap here beneath where it says app icon, and let go. And what has happened is really cool. You'll see it's figured out there are all these different countries. There's 12 in total. And for each one, there's a file name, estonia.ping, then Estonia at 2x.ping, and Estonia at 3x.ping, and has correctly sorted them to be Estonia 1, 2, 3, France 1, 2, 3, Germany 1, 2, 3, and so forth. It's split them up correctly for us. So I can just say, show me Germany, and there is Germany's 1x, 2x, 3x pictures. Now the question is, what is this doing? And the answer is simple and wonderful at the same time. This is how iOS resolves a non-Retina device, known as 1x, versus a Retina device, which is 2x, and the all-new Retina HD devices, iPhone 6 Plus, which is a 3x. The same picture at different sizes. If I show you this thing inside preview, here's Germany.ping, you will see that picture is 200 wide by 100 up. Germany at 2x is literally twice the size. It's 400 by 200, and 3x is 3 times the size, therefore 600 by 300. So with iOS, you don't want to have to think about, well, am I running on a Retina or a Retina HD or an iPad mini or whatever. You don't care. You just care about it's a picture, please show it the right size. So what happens is you just specify things in what are called points. And a point is a virtual pixel, not a real pixel, a virtual pixel. And a point in iPhone before iPhone 4, so 3GS, 3G and original, and non-Retina iPad, so that's the mini and the iPad 2 and the iPad 1, 1 point equals 1 pixel. 200 points equals 200 pixels. For a Retina device, i.e. Your 4S, 4S, 5, 5S, and 6, plus all the iPad Retinas, so 3, 4, Air 2, and so forth, 1 point is equal to 2 pixels. iOS automatically makes it occupy more space. It's the same on the screen, same visual space on the screen, same visual size. The point's the same size, but behind the scenes it maps to 2 pixels. And on Retina HD it maps to 3 pixels, so 1 point is 3 pixels. The nice thing is we never think in pixels. We think in these virtual points. We say it's 200 wide by 100 high. Show this picture. And an iPhone 6 Plus, it will automatically make it 600 wide by 300 pixels high, pixels, not points, pixels, and load the at 3x graphics so it looks great inside that resolution. We never have to worry about that. We just say, please load the Germany flag, and iOS does the rest of the work for us. It's really fantastic the way it handles pixels and points. So in our UI, when we're measuring things in a storyboard, we say, well, listen, it's 200 by 100. We haven't got another layout for HD and Retina and so forth. We just hit it's 200 by 100 and let the device sort the rest of it out, which is fantastic. So now we've imported those things inside our asset catalog, we can start using it. So go to the attributes inspector for our button. I see it's got a title of button. Delete that and instead give it an image. And I'm going to go ahead and choose Estonia, like that. There it is. And you'll see the orange lines go away. And it's a case of that if I've chosen any flag, say US or UK, the orange lines go away now. Clear it, orange lines back, because it's not sure how big it is. As soon as you put a flag in there, US or any other flags, because they're all the same size, it now knows the correct size of the button is 200 times 100, because it can look at the actual content inside the image and say, yep, I've got a width and a height. You gave me an X because you're saying horizontal center, and a Y space from that. I am fully complete. You have hit all the rules for auto layout. It's a full auto layout constraint set, which is fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and add the same flag to all the buttons. I'll space out slightly more. Make both these buttons have no text, and let's give them all the US flag. Boom. So auto layout knows what to do with those, and we're going to go ahead and complete the layout for these things. So for the middle flag, we're going to control drag not to the view controller, but to the first flag, and let go of the button and say vertical spacing. That means set my vertical spacing to be equal to that far from the previous flag. And we're also going to choose center X. Again, all the orange goes away. It's got an X and a Y and a width and a height. That's a fully detailed auto layout constraint set. We're okay to continue. For the last one, control drag. And a hint, if you hold down the shift key, you can click two things at once. So I'm going to press, I've got holding down shift here. I'll press vertical spacing and center X, and then click away. And it will fill in the constraints perfectly for that thing. So our auto layout is now complete, right? We've told this thing to be so far away from the top and centered, and it's the width and the height, and that's so far away from that one, and that's so far away from that one. It should be perfect, right? Except visually you can see it's actually rubbish. You know, they aren't in any way lined up. This is a lazy auto layout, which is strange because we said this flag should center horizontally. Sure, you'd think it'd be centered horizontally. But actually what happens is when you created this center horizontal rule, you can select it. It centers it based on where it started. So it's saying center horizontally, but with this minus 56, because it was originally minus 56. So it's making it adjust to where it started, plus centering it. If you clear that down to 0, it's now actually centered. And these two also moved because they based their position on the previous flag. So they all move relative to each other. So I'm going to say to this one, again, you know, I want you to center precisely as opposed to, you know, vaguely. So let's kill that constant. Boom. And now they are all correctly centered. So center X directly on the dot centers down the view controller. There is some vertical space constraints here that we made. One's got 30 as a constant, so 30 from the top, then 35, then 31. That's quite lazy. We could make that a bit smarter. We could say, actually, we want this to be a particular number based on our own exact layout from a designer or something. We could say, listen, you need to be 20, and then you should be 20, and then you should be 20. Beautiful. And now the layout's looking nice and sharp using auto layout. So for now, this layout is done in terms of its everything being positioned correctly, and it's got the right auto layout constraints. But before we're finished, we want to be able to access these things in code, right? We don't want to show the US flag again and again and again because that's quite a tedious game. We want to show different flags based on the game. So we're going to create 3 outlets, one for each button. And again, this means going to the assistant editor, up here, these 2 circles, or tuxedo, depending on your version. Then I want you to control drag from the first flag down to the class and let go of the mouse button. Name it button 1. Connect. Second one, drag down. Button 2. And third one, oops daisy, undo. Third one, drag down. Button 3. Fantastic. That is our layout fully detailed, fully auto laid out with properties inside the class so we can start referencing them. We are done with this storyboard for now. We are going to come back to it soon to do some more work, but for now, let's get busy coding. I am sure you are bored of this stuff. So quit the assistant editor, back to the standard editor, and load up viewcontroller.swift. We only have one view controller in this entire project. Beneath our 3 IB outlets, we're going to add 2 new properties. Firstly, an array of countries to hold all the possible countries that will exist in our game. So create a new property, var it's a variable, countries equals, and this thing, it's mean country names, Germany, France, US, UK, and so forth. So it's names, it's text, it's string. So you want array of strings, which is a square bracket string, like that. And we want to create it at the same time. We're not just saying it is an array of strings, we're saying it's an array of string, yeah, that's its type, but also please create it. And that's done by just saying 2 parentheses like that. So that creates the array of strings for us automatically. The second thing we want, this being a game, is a score. We want to know how well the player is doing. So we'll make a new variable called score, and we'll give it the initial value of 0. And what's happening here is Swift is looking at this and saying, well, I'm not sure what data type this is, but you want to put an array of strings into it. And I've no idea what this is, but you want to put 0 into it. So it's going to infer from that the actual data types. This is an array of strings, and this holds whole numbers. It's an integer. Integer is a coder's way of saying 1, 1,000, 1,000,001, whole numbers. These are all integers or ints. 3.1, that's not an int, that's a decimal. So you can't use that here. But with Swift, when you do var name equals a number, a whole number like that, like 0 or 10 or 100, it thinks, aha, I will infer this thing to be an integer. So if you were to type score later and look in your code completion, you would see score int. It knows it holds whole numbers, which is cool. With those two things defined, we're going to try and fill in our countries array. So we've got this thing here called countries, an array of strings, and you can go ahead and write, countries dot append Estonia, then copy and paste 1,000 times, not Estonia but France, oops, not France but Germany, then Ireland, and so forth. Now notice these are all lowercase, right? Because that's what we have inside our names here for the pictures. That is important because iOS is a case-sensitive file system, so we have to be lowercase here. So you could do that. That's perfectly fine to add all the things to your array, all the countries to your array. You could also use a nice shorter syntax, which is plus equals then the country name. So Estonia, France, Germany, Ireland. And while I'm typing, let's talk about plus equals. Plus equals means add and assign at the same time. It means on the right, I'm creating an array, a new array, oops, quote on that one, a new array of country names. It's great, got all my country names in there. I want to add that to whatever is in my current array of countries, which is obviously nothing at this time because the app's just started up. UK and US. There we go. So this line says, create a new array of these countries, like this. Boom. This is an array of strings. Estonia, France, Germany, yeah, all these things are in there. Great. Create that array, then add it to, i.e. plus, and assign it to, put it back into, the countries array. So add this lot to that array. So at this point, that started life as being empty, so it will now contain basically exactly that array. This thing here is called an operator, by the way. Plus equals adds and assigns at the same time. So that sets up our countries. What we have to do now is ask a question. Here are 3 countries. Which one is the right one? And we're going to do that inside ViewDidLoad by adding a method called askQuestion. Like that. Ask question. Brilliant. Immediately, Xcode says, error. Don't know what that means. I've got no idea what askQuestion means. That's because it's a method we haven't written yet. So let's do that now. askQuestion needs to set our 3 buttons to have different images, random flags. So we're going to say, func, caps lock off this time, func ask question, parens, then open brace. This is our new method. Function method, same thing realistically, don't worry about it, we'll get into more detail much later. So this is a new method called ask question, and again the error goes immediately. The error goes away because it now knows what ask question is. It does nothing, but it now at least knows what it is. So inside ask question, we want to set button 1's image to be an image from our array, button 2 be image from the array, and button 3 image from the array, which is fine. So we'll just say button 1 dot set image. Now this takes 2 parameters: the image to set as a UI image, we met that class in project 1. And then a control state, which we'll look at in a second. So first, we want to make a new UI image named whatever is in the first item of our countries array, like that. So remember, arrays count from 0, so country 0 means the first country. In this case, it'll be Estonia. Then, for state, I want you to type .normal. And that code will work fine. That's a control state. Now, what you're seeing here is a new type of data called an enumeration. We could have said for state 2, where 2 happens to mean the normal state of the button. But that's kind of hard to code with, right? Because what's 2, what's 3, what's 5? You have to remember all these possible control states for all possible classes, which no one's going to do. So instead we have enumerations, shortened to enums. And enums are a textual way of specifying various values. .normal might very well mean 2 behind the scenes. It's as fast as using 2, but for a coder, we can say normal. I get normal. That's when the button's its normal state. It's not when it's highlighted or selected or whatever. It's its normal button state. Now, the reason it's .normal and not just normal is because it's actually a shortcut behind the scenes. What we're doing is we are specifying a control state, which is a UI control state enum. And inside there, dot are various options. So application, disabled, highlighted, normal, reserved, selected. We're using normal. So that's the full line of code. But Swift knows that for state must take a UI control state. Look carefully when you do code completion, button 1 dot set image. See, it's telling us here this thing takes a UI control state. So it knows it has to be a UI control state. So when you can take that away, it knows it means the normal value of UI control state and not some other normal from other enum somewhere, which makes it much easier to write. But there is one proviso to that. In my version of Xcode, which is 6.2 beta, it's a beta flag here. You may not have that. You may have the release version by now. Maybe it's fixed this bug perhaps. If I type a full stop, a period, to do code completion, I get nothing. I have to know it means normal, which is a pain. Whereas if I typed UI control state dot, it would prompt me with the possible options. Not helpful. But you learn the ones you want over time, basically. So the game is now in a fit state to run. So you can go ahead and press Command R and run the game back and see what happens. Not a lot yet, but we'll get to that. There we go. So we've got US at the bottom 2, Estonia on top. That's because we've set it in code. Button 1 is 0, which is Estonia. If we were to do button 2 and button 3, you'd see this. So let's do a bit of copy and pasting. Button 2, button 3. Countries 1, countries 2. Make your code just like that. Perhaps take you a bit more time. Then press play, and now you'll see Estonia, France, Germany, which happens to be Estonia, France, Germany, the first 3 items in our array. Now, Estonia and France have a problem, which is that they've got this white bit in their flags. So if Germany wasn't there, you'd just see sort of like a blue thing and a black thing, then another blue thing and a red thing. You wouldn't see the white as being part of the flag. So it's not a great flag game. So what you really want to do is put a little key line, a little stroke around the flags to make them quite clear. And this is easily done using what's called CA layer, which is a whole new world of pain/joy, depending how you look at it. I'll write the code first and show you how it works. In view did load somewhere, please write this, button 1.layer.border width equals 1. Then copy and paste that for 2 and 3. So you've got that. Button 1 layer border width 1, 2 layer border width 1, 3 layer border width 1. And now press play. It looks slightly different. There we go. There's a nice key line around the thing showing, so it's now very clear that's the French flag if you know your flags well. What's happening here is we are reaching underneath UIKit, because UIKit's based on many years of Apple framework development. UIKit is like the summit of all this work. And behind all our views, so our image view, our buttons, or indeed any other views inside UIKit, lives a core animation layer. Core animations is one of Apple's technologies from many years ago. I think it actually was invented for the iPhone, but it was first released to OS 10.4, I think. And these CA layers handle the way our views are drawn. They do the actual management of the graphics of the things. So we can say, grab the CA layer using .layer and then fiddle with it. We can say, hey, give it a border width of 1 And we could say, you know, button1 dot layer dot border color. Now you'll see code completion is telling us border color, the color of the layer's border, is a CG color. I haven't seen CG color before. CG stands for core graphics. This is a core graphics color. And core graphics, like core animation and all the other things called core, they live in the underbelly of UIKit. They form the foundations of UIKit. They sit below UIKit. And what that means is you can't just use UIKit stuff when looking at core graphics. You have to use core graphics stuff or core animation stuff. It's a bit annoying now and then, but fortunately Apple has tons of code in their APIs to handle converting from one thing to another thing. For example, if you want to make the border color, say as a class called UI color, you could say .red color. Great. Well, no, error. Doesn't work. I expect a CG color, not a UI color. That's because core graphics sits below UIKit. It's got no idea that UIKit exists realistically. So it can't understand UI color, which comes from UIKit. Fortunately, UI color, any UI color, has a .cg color property. Because UIKit is aware of core graphics, it can say, please convert my color to be a core graphics color. So I'll copy and paste that a few times. Perhaps insert some variation there. First one red, second one blue color, third one green color. Then press play. And now you'll see the strokes of all these gorgeous colors in there. If you wanted to make your own color, you know, that's better than that. You can just create your own UI colors. You can say, I want UI color, parenthesis, red, green, blue, alpha. So this is a value between 0 and 1 for red. So I'll say 0.5 red, then 1 green and 0.25 blue. Alpha 0 means completely invisible, 1 means completely visible. I'll choose 1. It'll go plain again, so you must do .cg color. Then press play, and let's see what color I just invented. It is... so it's greenish, unsurprisingly, because green's 1. So you can make your own colors, or you can use one of the built-in ones, whatever makes you happy. That is enough styling. I'm going to go ahead and make these a bit more boring. Let's do light gray color .cg color. Fantastic. There we go. That's how mine's going to look. Nice light grey stroke around each of the flags. Not too annoying, but at least it points out where the flag ends, so you can see what's part of the flag and what is not. So now comes the complicated part. How do we know what flags to show? Because right now, well, we've got the Estonian flag, the French flag, and the German flag every single time. That's not any fun. So we have to try and randomize things a little bit. And the way we're going to do that is by using code someone else wrote, because randomization is hard. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll get it wrong. So please don't try and write your own randomization algorithm. Instead, we're going to use some open source code that a nice chap called Nate Cook wrote, and it's included in the project files for you. So up inside the content folder, you'll see array plus shuffling.swift, and that thing tells us all the code required to make an array shuffle, to rearrange the array, to randomize its order. So drag that file into your project, like that. Yes, copy items if needed. Don't write the other two, just press finish. It will appear in there straight away, and once it's in there, you can start using it straight away. We can start shuffling up arrays, which is very, very helpful, because we have this whole array of strings, Estonia, France, Germany, and so forth. We want the array order to be different every time. So it could be Monaco, Estonia, Poland, Russia, Germany, Italy, who knows what. We're going to randomize it every single time. So in the ask question method, down here, before we set any image, we want to shuffle that array. That's done by saying countries.shuffle. And that method is defined inside this array plus shuffling.swift file, and it becomes available to us because it's inside our project. We can start using it. Don't try and use the method, obviously, if you haven't imported the class already, otherwise it simply will not work, which is obvious, but there you go. Now, if you press play, we're a bit closer. Every time it asks a question, it randomizes, hopefully looking at this saying, well, I can see that's France, and what's that one? Well, it's Nigeria. Run it again. There we go. It's changed again. So we've got different countries, Russia and France and Germany. Randomize again. And you've got Estonia and Ireland and stuff. So it's randomizing correctly each time now. So it's different every time. It's getting to be a bit more like a game. But the real thing should be tracking which answer is the correct one. Because we're going to show an answer up here somewhere. And we need to know which one is the correct answer. Is it this button, or this button? And to do that, we're going to add a new property just beneath score here called correct answer. So call it var correct answer and give it the default value of 0. We'll change that shortly. What we're going to do is we're going to pick a number between 0, 1, or 2. Those are our 3 flags. The 3 things we're using is 0, 1, and 2. And we'll assign that to be correct answer. And the easiest way of doing this is by using a built-in function for iOS, which has got a really, really silly name, but it's a brilliant function. So we'll say correct answer equals, and the function is called arc4 random underscore uniform. This is a random number generator. Well, technically a pseudo random number generator. It can't generate true randomness, but it can do its best. And it will generate a random number between 0 and, in our case, we want 3. That's the upper bound. That means it will generate 0, 1, or 2. It won't ever hit the top number. And what will happen here is you'll get an error. Correct answer won't work because this thing returns a special kind of number. If you look up here, we had type inference, score equals 0, and makes that an int, an integer, right? Same for correct answer, that's an int, integer. This thing also returns an integer, but it returns a subtly incompatible form of integer called a uint32. This can hold larger numbers at the expense of not being be able to hold negative numbers. That's fine. All I have to do is convert that to an int by saying int parenthesis around it like that. So we're saying create an int from that. I don't care if it doesn't fit, make it fit, and it will correctly squeeze it into an int and assign that to the correct answer. So when this code now executes ask question, first randomizes the order of the array of countries, then uses 0, 1, or 2 for these 3 buttons, then picks a random number between 0 and 2, so 0, 1, or 2, and puts that inside correct answer. So either this one, or this one will be the correct answer at this point. What we're going to do is show that correct answer in the navigation bar. So we're going to say title, which is the property of our view controller that affects the navigation bar's title, equals countries, and then we're going to index into the array and say correct answer. Find the answer at that position, so it'll either be 0, 1, or 2. And because we have, in this case, always countries lowercase, we don't really want, Italy lowercase I or Germany lowercase g. We want to uppercase the first letter. And actually, we have UK and US, which would look really awful if it was just sort of uppercase first letter like that. It would look, silly. So we're going to uppercase the whole thing. We're going to put the whole title in uppercase. And that's super easy to do in Swift. You just say country's correct answer dot uppercase string, like that. And that will automatically convert the text into uppercase and put it inside our navigation controller's title. Press play now, and you should see. There we go. So it's saying one of these 3 flags is Germany. Which one? It's that one. It doesn't do anything. That's because we haven't done the code yet for tapping on the buttons. So let's return to Interface Builder. I said we'd go back, and here we are. Back to Interface Builder. There's our buttons. We've already made the outlets, the connections to the code. Then the thing we're going to do now is create actions. So outlets let us reference things in code. Actions take an action when something's changed or clicked or affected somehow in the view. Now I get this bit wrong all the time, so please listen to my instructions carefully. Hopefully I won't get it wrong on video because that would be very embarrassing. We'll see shortly. So what I want you to do is go to the assistant editor again, and I want you to control drag into some spare space in your class. So let's make some space down here underneath ask question. Then control drag from the flag down to that space, like that. And now it says insert outlet, action, or outlet collection. Action is the one we want, so let go of the mouse button. And this is the bit I normally get wrong. I won't get it wrong today because I've practiced hard for this recording. Change connection to be action, not outlet. If you choose outlet by accident, it will get things really wrong. Don't do that. So when you do that, it'll change type to any object, which is silly. Put it back to be UI button, much nicer. And now give it a name. What action should happen when this button is tapped? So I'm going to just call mine button tapped. The event is touch up inside, which is the iOS way of saying button has been tapped, and then press connect. And it writes a new method inside our class, and it's got a circle next to it, which means that button, the highlighted button in the top right, will call that method when it's tapped. Now control drag from the second thing onto the same method like that. So it highlights the whole method and let go, and it's now attached as well. And for the third one, the same thing. So they're all now calling that method. So when any button is tapped, that method will be called. Problem is, how do we know which button was tapped? They all look the same to us. We've got no idea which is which. The easiest way to do this for our game is to use a special property that identifies views uniquely. Bring up the inspector pane on the right, then choose this second flag. Now scroll down in the attributes inspector and change tag to be 1. The first flag we aren't touching because the tag's 0 by default. So flag 1 is tag 0, flag 2 tag 1, flag 3 tag 2. So tag 0 at the top, 1, then 2. Now that's not a coincidence. We're actually using the same numbers we're assigning inside our countries array. First button gets 0, 1, and 2. So we know which country was tapped because the array index matches the tag of the thing that was tapped, which means we can now look up to see if the thing that was tapped was the right answer. All we have to do is say, is the tag of the thing that was tapped equal to our correct answer? So, to do that, go into the button tap method, and we're going to make a variable first. We'll come back to it in a second, but make a variable called message title. Make it a string. Let's put that to one side and focus on something else. Let's say here, if sender.tag equals correct answer, then message title equals correct. Then we're going to add 1 to score, which is done using ++ score. Otherwise, if our button tag is not the correct answer, else message title equals wrong. Then subtract 1 from score, minus score. So there's quite a few new things here. First up, we're declaring a new string. It's not string exclamation mark, it's not string question mark, it's a plain old string, which means it must have a value before it's used. Otherwise, Swift will complain. Then we're saying, if the button that was tapped, sender is automatically passed in as a UI button, the thing that was tapped. If the button that was tapped, tag, is equal to, at equals, 1 equals sign means assign, 2 equals means does it equal to. If the tag is the same as the correct answer, make the title correct, and ++ score. ++ score means add 1 to the score. We could have written score equals score plus 1, but it's super elite to say ++ score. You can, by the way, actually say score ++, and they mean mostly the same thing. But there are a few situations which might catch you out, in which I recommend you use ++ score the entire time. It does the least surprising thing. Otherwise, if the button's tag does not equal the correct answer, they got the wrong flag, take 1 away from the score and set title to be wrong. Now, just setting a variable message title equals wrong doesn't do anything special. It's not actually useful. We're going to use a new class, which is introduced in iOS 8, to show some feedback to users so they know whether they were awesome or, well, let's face it, not so awesome. So when they've modified the score, we're going to tell them what their new score is, using a cool technique called string interpolation. So we're going to write let message text equals your score is, and then \parenthesis score parenthesis quote. That there is string interpolation. What will happen is this symbol \parenthesis means I'm going to put some code in the middle of my string, this bit. And the code ends at the closing parenthesis here. Here. And Swift will automatically evaluate that code, figure out what it should be, and place it into the string in line. So if our score is 10 as an integer, this will say your score is 10 inside the string. So it automatically interpolates the thing to make it look great as a string. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that to show a UI alert controller, which shows an alert message to users saying whether they were right or wrong. So let's create a new alert controller. Let AC equals UI alert controller. And then you'll see there are options here. We want the last one, title, message, preferred style. Title, message to show in the title of the message box. We already have one called message title. That's why I put it aside earlier. The message should be message text. Your score is whatever. So message text. Preferred style has two options. You can choose between alert view, or alert, which is a pop-up thing on the screen, which is designed to present information. Or you can choose an action sheet, which is normally, Apple say, recommended to help someone clarify a request. How do you want to do this thing? We want to choose alert. State has changed. Here's what's happened. We're then going to add to that two actions. Well, one action, which is a continue button to carry on playing. So I'm going to say ac.add_action, and this requires a new class called UI alert action. It's called UI alert action. And again, this thing wants a title, a style, and some other stuff. So the title of our button is going to be continue. The style is going to be .default. It's a UI alert action style. You can choose destructive, make it red, or cancel, down to you. Default is a normal button. Handler, this is a new thing. It's a bit complicated. We're going to kind of skip over it a little bit here. What should happen when this button is tapped? I want you to write in there, ask a question. Now be careful. Don't put parentheses after it. Don't do like ask question like that. That will not work. You want to do ask question without parentheses like that. That means when this continue button is tapped, tell ask question to execute. As opposed to, if you were to do that, it means run the method now, then it will tell you what to execute. It's quite a bit of a messy thing to do. You don't want to do that. You want to say, when the button's been tapped, call ask question. I need another parenthesis in the end there. Next up, we want to show the alert controller, show the message to users. We say present view controller. The name of it is AC, that's our variable name. Animate it, yes please. Completion nil. We don't care what happens when it completes. And that will create and show the alert controller to users for them to see stuff. And they'll see a continue button. When that's tapped, it'll ask a question. But there is a compile error. You'll see here it's saying, I can't do that. And the actual error is really one of Swift's finer error messages here. UI alert action ! Is not a subtype of parenthesis. Yeah, thanks Swift. What it means is we need to modify ask question, because what happens is when this alert action continue is tapped, the ask question method will be called automatically, and it'll be told, hey, you were called by this UI alert action. So we can say, well, which alert action was it? Was it a continue one? Was it a cancel one? Was it a default one? Who knows what? So we have to actually put in here to accept an alert action. So we say action, that's it, UI alert action, like that. And now the error's gone away because that's correct. But there's another error. It's like springing leaks everywhere. Up here, we are calling ask question without passing in a UI alert action. So it's complaining that shouldn't be possible. And there are two options here. We either call it passing in nil. There was no UI alert action calling you. Possible. Or you can leave it as empty and specify down here that there is a default for this value of nil, like that. So action UI alert action equals nil, which means if I don't pass it, assume it's nil, which is fine too. So it fixes this problem because it will pass in the UI alert action. It fixes this problem because we aren't passing anything at all. It'll assume nil and the program works correctly. Go ahead and press run now. And you should see a fully working application. So here's the Irish flag, the French flag, and the German flag. Which one's which? I've been told to find Germany. I think it's the Irish flag. I'm wrong. I tap on it. It'll say, wrong, your score is -1. Continue. And it asks another question. Spain, wrong, -2. Estonia, Hooray, correct, -1 again. So I'm working my way out of this hole slowly. Italy, there we go. So the whole thing works. So as you click on flags, it's asking questions and showing more and more flags by using this UI alert action to call ask question every time. It reshuffles the array, adds new things, gets a new correct answer, and puts it into the title. So that ends the project. I know it's not been another very hard project, but again, you've learned a huge amount. We've been back to IB again. We've been back to auto layout again with more information this time. You've seen UI button. You've found about enums. You found out about operators, asset catalog, integers, UI color, random numbers, IB actions, CA layers, UI alert controller, string interpolation. And you've got your first game. It's not, a stunner, but it's a game and it works. And you made it. So not only have you practiced the things from Project 1 and learned stacks of new stuff, but you've got another finished project to build upon. Well done. Don't forget, you can go to hackingwithswift.com to buy the book of this video, which goes into far more information again. If you want details, if you want answers, if you want to really understand what's going on here, get the book. It costs just like $3 or something. It's really cheap. And it helps support me to make more videos like this one. You can also buy the entire series as a book, which is fantastic. Or you can buy the videos. This video is low res. You can buy the high res versions on hackingwithswift.com. Alternatively, if you have questions or problems or just want to say hi, you can follow me on Twitter @2straws. I look forward to hearing from you. Good luck, have fun, and please go and make this thing be awesome. Extend this game, make it do more stuff. Have a lot of fun.